She is a 13-year veteran teacher at the high school M560, City as School. I don't know how verbally that is said. I will just say those words, City as School. She is a 2016 SciEd Innovator Fellow, born and raised right here in New York City, Vielca Anglin.
Thank you. Going last, no pressure, right? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vielca Anglin, and my classroom is my swing. Oh, I need a clicker, don't I? Thank you. Let me explain. My father, Ernesto Delano, and my mom, Sylvia, came here for a better life from Costa Rica. Growing up in the Bronx, my dad was always at our kitchen table sketching and designing. He had wanted to be a civil engineer before immigrating to the US from Costa Rica. He made a little table and 2 chairs for my sister to play Barbies in our apartment. But what I really remember is the swing that my dad made for us with his own hands. For some reason, the park in our neighborhood did not have swings. And we all know that swings are hands down the best part of any park experience, right? I remember the varied shades of brown in the piece of salvage wood that my dad brought home to begin the project. With my fingers, I would trace the knots in the wood, and I would hold the yellow-coated rough rope in my hand. I can still feel its texture even now. My dad planned, sketched, sawed, and hammered away every night after coming home from a long day of work as an accountant. My dad liked his job, but he didn't get to build many swings in his office. That swing was our everything. My sister and I insisted that my dad find a tree that was hidden away from the other neighborhood kids. He insisted, though, that we put the swing where everyone would have access to it. As soon as the swing was up, they all came running, and you can probably guess that I was pretty popular on those days. What made the process even more magical was that my dad listened to and empathized with a 4- and 6-year-old about a need in our community park. He sat down and divined the problem with us by asking the questions, how might we solve this issue of not having a swing in our park? With my sister and me at each of his elbows, he brainstormed and ideated any number of possible designs. Finally, he built a prototype, tested it on his little clients, returned to his drawing board to refine and hone his design, My dad saw a need and created a solution for it. Was Papi aware that he was engaging in the design thinking process? Not in so many words. My 16 to 21-year-old transfer students don't always see themselves as design thinkers. And they certainly don't always feel connected to the curriculum that they've been taught. Some express feeling constrained by this concept that school does not relate to creativity and what is relevant in their lives. What, as a teacher, can I realistically do to empathize with their perspective and also help them to realize their roles in their communities and our society as powerful and transformational, much like the swing and my father was in the community that I grew up in? As a teacher, I engage in this iterative cycle every time I sit down to design, reflect on, and redesign the learning experiences that I create for my students. This past spring, I co-taught a course called Flying High. And let me tell you, that probably isn't the wisest name for a high school course, but it certainly piques their interest. My students engaged in a challenge around learning about the scientific principles of hot air ballooning to ultimately design, prototype, and test paper hot air balloons. At the end of the course, I asked them for feedback on their experience, and they expressed that they had a lot of fun engaging in the challenge. What more could a teacher ask for? To quote one student, it was lit. But in pushing them a little further, they couldn't express strong content knowledge, and they also couldn't connect the technology to their real lives. I needed to revisit the course and my swing. So the beginning of this school year, I put on the hat of designer and set about tweaking the course to better suit the needs of my students. We discussed what the potential utility could be of a hot air balloon in the middle of an urban environment. And they ideated topics that they were interested in, like Google's Project Loon and getting the entire globe connected to the internet. You can imagine that their minds were blown when they realized that 50% of the Earth doesn't have internet access. We also listened to a podcast, Radiolab podcast, called Eyes in the Sky, that tells the story of technology that was created in 2004 that uses a plane and a cluster of cameras to take aerial images of an entire city over a 24-hour period. Some students expressed that they didn't feel comfortable with the knowledge that their every move could be watched and documented. But they thought it was cool that crime could be solved and prevented with this technology. Some students even went further and expressed strong sentiments around their constitution, the potential violation of their constitutional rights if this technology was part of New York City and their communities. This cycle, my students are constructing their hot air balloons, but this time so that we can take aerial images of our school community. They are using the principles of density and buoyancy that we've been learning about in class to construct these designs, and in a few weeks, we're going to attach small flip cameras to their designs and take aerial images of our school grounds. Eventually, they will use this imagery to create maps, estimate area, and propose a green space for our school community. As a teacher in a transfer high school, it has been a tremendous challenge for me to balance helping students move past high school and also honor their lived experiences, passions, opinions, and values. In the pursuit of what is fair and balanced, the iterative nature of the design thinking process and its root in human empathy and human-centered design has helped my students see their learning as less of a transaction and more of something that they can take agency in. They are learning to construct their own swings, like my father did, like I do, and like you do. I would like to leave you with a few questions. What could our city look like if every single one of our students saw themselves as design thinkers? How might we empower them to see their valuable roles in our communities and our society. Thank you all.